What? My minions failed to write an episode on evil lackeys? Very well. I shall have to do it myself. How else will I prepare a proper welcome for the heroes? That's right. TWA is finally tackling one of my favorite subjects, evil lackeys. Also known as Mooks, Henchmen, goons, Minions, their names may vary, but the villain needs some bodies to throw at their problems, warm or otherwise, maybe even literally. And the heroes need some enemies to fight, so summon the Dread Legions as TWA begins the March of the Mooks. Now, Henchmen help the story achieve two primary objectives. Objective 1, make the villains look like a threat. Objective 2, make the heroes look awesome when they defeat the villains. A writer need only concern themselves with Objective 2, making the heroes look awesome. Now, some writers may point out that failing Objective 1, making the villains look like a threat, will also result in the story failing Objective number 2, because heroes are only as good as the villains they face. But my heroes are so awesome that I simply don't have to worry about that. And I'm not just saying that because the protagonist is my pet character. A writer is completely free to treat all mooks as an afterthought compared to the hero doing cool things and being awesome as they defeat them. As such, an important feature for henchmen when designing them is to make them stupid. Like, so stupid. Like, there are more ways for goons to be stupid than there are stars in the sky, so I had to instead list a few ways they could be smart instead. That way, a writer would know what to avoid. Things like using basic tactics like teaming up to attack all at once, locking shields into a formation, a basic flanking maneuver, fire suppress and then flank, operate in a basic fire team, clear a room first with grenades, use cover, like at all, mixing in mages to the ranks to cover infantry with magic, actually using their magic in combat, actually using their magic for anything, falling back to regroup and then counterattacking, sticking together so they won't get picked off one at a time, calling in artillery support, calling in magic support, calling in overwhelming reinforcements, using an organized retreat when they've realized they occupy an untenable position, fortifying their position, utilizing probing attacks to scout for a weak point in the enemy's defenses, deploy skirmishers to soften the enemy up, grind the enemy down with attrition while rotating in fresh troops to keep up the pressure, or just anything other than charging at the nearest hero while snarling like an animal. The minions have to be really stupid, that way they're easy to write and I don't have to think about them that much. Basically, they are at the level of a prop. Should writer explain why the villains' lackeys are so stupid? Does the Dark Lord not want them thinking too much? Are any competent mooks weeded out during the selection process? I don't worry about that. All I know is that I can write my henchmen without having to worry about things that normal people might have, like a self-preservation instinct or basic pattern recognition. Oh hey look, that guy who looks like Bruce Lee had a child with a bulldozer literally just smashed through a freaking steel and concrete building like it was made out of foam. And he just made people explode by lightly poking them. Yeah, we better attack him one at a time while grinning like we just found an easy mark. Oh no, all the mooks exploded, just like the last 500 thugs who fought him. Have the minions improve and refine their tactics with each battle as they learn more and more about the hero's ability as well as the hero's limitations? Changing it up by trying something new? Roll out new weapons, equipment, and or magic abilities to take the heroes by surprise? Nope, they should just stick to doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. No need to add a sense of escalation that would keep Team Good Guys on their toes and force them to adapt or lose the arms race. The heroes don't need to think to defeat their foe anyways. They can do that just by being super awesome and cool. Besides, the henchmen are still human, so they will make mistakes. Mistakes happen, and that makes it okay to let the goons make the same mistakes over and over again, giving the heroes basically infinite free lucky breaks out of any pinch. The goons will never think, because that might mean I have to think. I would rather use my story's minion stupidity as an excuse to breeze through the plot without having to put a lot of legwork to make the bad guys actually look like a credible threat, rather than a Three Stooges skit. I'm sure the audience will just overlook the fact that the villains keep letting the heroes win with their incompetence, rather than the heroes winning through their competence. Have the minions play it smart only for the heroes to outsmart them? Where's the power fantasy in that? I would rather coast my way through the story on easy mode rather than deal with something as pointless as narrative tension. Yes, my mooks will not actually be a credible threat thanks to their stupidity, but I can cheat my way past that too by at least making them look like a threat. How will I do this? By telling the audience how big of a threat they are, of course, not by actually showing them. "The Dark Lord's vile legions are unstoppable," proclaims the guard captain right before the vile legions are vanquished by the heroes as an afterthought. Now we can return to more important things, like the catty fight between the two Double H Cup elf girls over who likes the protagonist more. Could I have shown the vile legions defeating Sir Brave and his order of previously shown to be quite formidable knights? What about a quick scene showing the mighty armies of men and elves being driven before the unstoppable might of the Dread Lord and his elite forces? What about something more involved, like the vile legions dividing up the forces of light and defeating each group in detail until only the heroes remain and leaving Team Good Guys heavily outnumbered and on the ropes? Nope, not even the mightiest of the Dark Lord's elite soldiers can stand up to the protagonist and his fan club of top-heavy supermodels. All the other characters are just there to watch how amazing the protagonist is, not give the audience a good sense of how powerful the evil minions are. Actually, do my villains Mooks ever do anything remotely threatening? I mean, that the audience actually sees. Do we ever see the Cabal of the Red Blade kill even a single royal? What about a city guard captain? A merchant? Step on a bug? Have I done a single thing the entire story to sell these guys as a credible threat to anyone, so the audience won't be left wondering if the heroes just killed a bunch of Assassin's Creed cosplayers by accident? If I'm unwilling to spare even a single second to show the minions doing something evil or menacing, can I at least have the heroes come across the evil Lackey's handiwork? Please, I can't be bothered with that. I've spent 20 pages describing the courier's hat. There isn't room to establish the villains as a credible threat through the actions of the bad guys' rank and file soldiers. There isn't even enough time to show the goons hassling some innocent people. All grand acts of villainy are reserved for the story's central antagonist. Also, all the small acts as well. Sorry, minions, there isn't a lot of dark deeds to go around, and the Dark Lord gets dibs for what little there is. Now, a major antagonist is free to do the truly vile acts that drive the story, like blowing up planets, genocide, enslaving all of creation to his will, and so on. However, the scale of such acts tend to not have much of an emotional impact on the audience, since it's hard to care about the destruction of planet Backdrop and its population of 20 billion background extras who we never get to meet. Does this mean that this is a prime opportunity to use the evil Empire's forces to drive home just how evil the Empire is by showing the audience up close its destructive and corrupt practices at a personal level? Like showing how Imperial troopers make the lives of every planet they occupy worse for everyone. Showing the small ways evil systems destroy the lives of sympathetic named characters could do way more to establish why the bad guys are bad than large-scale impersonal atrocities ever could. It could even show the tip of the iceberg of the very system the villains use to keep in power, allowing the audience to extrapolate the vast scale of the monumental problem the heroes now face in combating such a system. Like how the evil empire enslaves people. Oh, wait, no, I can't do that. That might make my hero look bad after he buys a hot, busty slave girl and just keeps her. Yeah, gonna just sweep that under the rug there. It's not like having most of the goons' villainy occur off-screen will lead to a dark future where I have to put up with evil empire apologists and deniers plaguing my video recommended feeds. Or also lead to fans rooting for the Empire because they find the heroes boring. Besides, if I want to up the threat level, I'll just add some elite variations of the Mooks. Will they prove a deadly and cunning foe that finally puts the heroes on the back foot? Do their skills allow them to meet the heroes head on and fight them on equal terms, forcing the heroes to adapt in order to barely eke out a victory? Well, no, they still get slaughtered in droves, but at least they have the word elite in their title, plus they get slightly snazzier uniforms. If they are effective, then don't worry, I'm sure they'll vanish after the whole hero being captured arc is done, never to be seen again. But hey, at least their uniforms were cool to look at while it lasted. Speaking of uniforms, evil minions always get snazzy uniforms. Franchises have been built on this. Only tryhards, though, waste their time going the extra mile with stuff like having distinct officer uniforms, fleshing out ranks and insignias, and adding variations based on combat role. Also, writers must base these uniforms on Nazis, specifically the SS, no exceptions. We will have order, not creativity in fiction. Now, basing their antagonist uniforms on Nazis is fine since they are the go-to villains for a reason. Just remember that this is mandatory and that a writer should ignore the massive amount of historical empires, nation-states, cultures, and kingdoms throughout history as potential sources of inspiration. Just like a writer is free to ignore giving the Mooks any kind of characterization. Yes, they are background characters who play only bit roles at best, which means that a writer is free to ignore them and not try to squeeze out any amount of characterization no matter how small when they can. For example, back to the uniforms, the author could note how disheveled the minions' uniforms look now that the heroes and their allies are closing in on the bad guys' main base after the bad guys suffer a series of losses. or that their uniforms look too big and don't fit right on the teenagers they are pressing into service as the villains run low on manpower on the eve of their last stand. Details like that might add a nice touch, but I would rather conserve those details for describing the curvaceous body of love interest number 10,463. A writer doesn't even have to bother with characterizing the Lackeys when the heroes overhear them talking. Just have the Mooks info dump like everyone else in the story, not express an opinion on their situation. Just gloss over or outright ignore small opportunities for characterization, rather than keep an eye out for them, and you should be fine. Which is more than I can say for the minions themselves because their boss has implemented a zero-tolerance policy for failure. Failure in this case even extending to things like giving the Dark Lord an accurate assessment of his current situation so he can make an informed decision. In fact, the henchman's boss typically kills more people on his own side than the enemy. Can this be used to showcase the evilness of the story's primary antagonist? Of course, which is why the writer can do this as many times as they want, and the audience will never start to wonder why anyone would follow the Dark Lord when his primary reward for pretty much everything seems to be death, including the retirement package. See, he controls them through fear. Does the Dark Lord kill off and reward minions at random to maintain this climate of fear while keeping everyone off balance? No, that would make my main antagonist look like he's using the standard issue cult playbook, and I was going for more of a who the hell put this guy in charge kind of a playbook instead. Exploring how hierarchies of evil function and keep their members in line isn't worth analyzing in depth. It's not like people need to be warned about that in real life. This means that writers are free to ignore why the goons decided working for a guy named Killface McDeath Dealer sounded like a good employment opportunity. Still, as bad as their boss is, our poor Mooks fare even worse at the hands of the good guys. Even Killface McDeath Dealer gets a second chance because killing him would make the hero no better. The lives of the Lackeys, though, don't count as their death carries no moral weight. Yes, even if they are a feeling, thinking, fully sapient individual capable of choosing between good and evil. No mercy for them. Wow, and right after the hero just gave a heroic speech about the sanctity of life. See, it's okay for the heroes to dehumanize and kill the villains' Lackeys because they were evil and dehumanized people so they could kill them. It's wrong to arbitrarily exclude people from being human to justify murdering them, and those who do this are no longer human, so the heroes are fully justified in killing them. I mean, it's not like I'm asking for much here. I don't need the heroes to agonize over killing Imperial Trooper 7235 or anything. Kill them to stop their vile acts or self-defense, but don't pretend as though every evil action these people take makes them not human when being human encompasses the ability to choose evil. Call them monsters if you must, but never deny the evil of the human heart, and acknowledge your foe's humanity, even if it's only cursory. Oh, no way. That gets in the way of the power fantasy. Never mind then. Kill the Mooks all you want. Make it as brutal as possible. Treat their bodies like a slab of meat to be torn apart, even if it comes at the cost of tone, and makes the heroes look like sadists. It's important to teach the audience that it's okay to be casual with death. Due process is for losers, and that murder can solve all of society's problems. Besides, the villainous Lackeys the heroes capture are in for a worse time. The heroes will torture the poor henchmen for information on the Dark Lord's true plan. Ah, good guys and torture, it's like peanut butter and jelly. Do the heroes at least fret over the ethics of torture? No, because they'll be too busy enjoying it without a second thought. Actually, under torture is the only time in the story that the Lackey gets to actually give information that proves effective. Then, once the heroes tire of the henchmen's tortured screams, only then do they allow them the sweet release of death. Never does it occur to the minion to lie while being tortured, nor does it occur to the heroes to offer the Lackey a better deal than whatever Killface McDeath Dealer was paying them. Better to utilize torture because not only does it always work, it's also 100% accurate. And if anyone disagrees, then just torture them until they change their mind. Now that we've tortured and murdered our poor Mooks, it's time to strip them of what little dignity they have left. That's right, I'm going to turn them into comic relief. The most important thing about making villainous henchmen into comic relief is taking into account how it will affect the tone. Comic relief minions can fit in perfectly with a comedic story, so I'm sure they'll just fit right in with the more serious story as well. Remember that objective one, making the villains seem like a threat, can never be undermined by their near constant bumbling of even the most simple task. Does the Dark Lord punish all failure with death? Well, not the comic relief minions, even though sometimes the audience really wishes he would. I'm sure the audience can't get enough of these silly Lackeys and their zany antics, so I'll just overload every scene that features the villains with their constant presence. Now they can undermine the Dark Lord's drama and menace as much as they undermine his efforts at world domination. And then they'll ruin my Facebook feed too. Unrealized potential. It's something that writers shouldn't worry about, especially when it comes to the villain's Mooks. Even lackeys who don't serve the Dark Lord, like bandits, should never get any detail at all. No banners or even a name. They get nothing to make it feel like they are part of the world and not just props to make the heroes look cool or a speed bump to slow down the plot's pacing. They exist to get wiped out and don't even give enough XP for the heroes to level up or any decent loot. Even minions who serve the primary antagonist just vanish when he's defeated. If they are lucky, they might get a sentence in the epilogue, but I wouldn't hold your breath. A writer's love will show through their work, as will their neglect, but since mooks are basically props, it's okay to neglect them. Small details like that are unimportant even if they do add immersion and make the world feel alive. By denying the lackeys a perspective and refusing to explore their stories at an even cursory level, a writer is free to indulge in wish fulfillment and make the whole world revolve around their self-insert instead. Did I say self-insert? Sorry, I meant protagonist. Then when no one likes my story, I can blame my minions for its failure, and they have failed me for the last time. And we're back. With opening statements out of the way, we can start with the first question for each candidate tonight. What is your primary platform? Let's start with X-General Chainsaw.
Platform? Well, we do have an M2809 VWAP, that's Versatile Weapons Attack Platform. Mount a couple of 200mm railguns on that sucker and you can take out kaiju at 20 clicks.
He means political platform, you idiot.
Oh, well, see, I'm all about war. I love war. There's all these awesome explosions and cool-looking weapons. It's glorious, brings a tear to my eye. That's what the Federation needs. More war. War for everyone. The Federation's problem is that they keep losing their wars. Just like the last president who declared war on poverty. And then somehow he lost, even though the poor people couldn't even afford weapons to fight back. Shameful. If that had been me, I would have slaughtered those poor people in the streets.
Mr. Inner Greed, what is your platform?
Greed good, opponent bad.
Crap. Greed's totally going to win. That's it.
It really is that simple. Can you really trust my opponent? Look at him, he's barely animated.
Well, that's not fair. So what, I don't have snazzy animations like you? You're going to destroy the entire TWA expanded universe.
I would accuse you of making a straw man argument if you didn't resemble a straw man yourself with how stiff your movements are. Citizens of the Federation, fear not. Yes, the TWA expanded universe will end, but to make way for something greater. Under my leadership, the people of the Federation will join me on Nebula. Thanks to the nature of YouTube, the TWA expanded universe will soon be mined out and depleted. As a platform, its corporate-imposed limitations are stifling. It's time to move on. That is where Nebula comes in. Nebula is a streaming platform built by YouTubers, podcasters, and other creatives. A platform where we are free to experiment with content that hasn't been sanitized or made to appease a machine algorithm. Like Tale Foundry's Nebula original Worldsmiths that dives into the history of some of fiction's most famous world builders. Some content creators have even migrated completely over to Nebula. That's where Lindsay Ellis disappeared off to. She's been making more Lord of the Rings videos. Signing up using my link also gets you free access to Nebula classes, where the creators of Nebula can teach you the tricks of being a creator. For example, Tom, the mind behind Like Stories of Old, who has a story analysis course, Devin Stone, aka Legal Eagle's course on lawyering, or Thomas Frank's Business 101 for Creators. Use my link to get a discounted annual plan at $30 a year. That's only $2.50 a month. You would be supporting the channel and getting exclusive access to early ad-free TWA videos. And that's on top of getting free access to Nebula classes. Link in the description as always. Or you can stick with the general here and enjoy endless war and the demonetization it brings.
Of course everyone loves war, like Private Joe Bonham over there. See, he loves it, and that's what I'm going to give everyone. Ha! And they said politics is hard.